Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and joining me for the grand finale of our Premier League preview, it's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. You outlasted me in the arms outstretched category. Well done, my friend. Well done.
No one can stretch their arms for farther or longer than me.
I don't know how you do it. Listeners, Daryl, whenever he does that hello, it's genuine enthusiasm, and it means the arms go out wide. Yeah. He's excited to announce it, and I tried to match him. He holds them out for a good long while, and I gave up.
I learned it from the night thing.
There we go.
So we are here for the final 5 teams of our Premier League
I don't know what that means. Does it mean you raised the dead? Are they all behind me? Am I in trouble?
Yep. That's why I get you to talk fast.
And yet you still ride your bicycle to work as opposed to something else.
Is it a bicycle or is it... No spoilers.
Yeah, we go.
No spoilers. These are going to be the final 5...
We're going to get so many angry tweets.
The final 5 previews. It's going to be Southampton, Tottenham, Watford, West Ham, and Wolverhampton Wanderers. Mm-hmm. If you haven't heard the other 15, they're spread across 3 shows. They're the 3 most recent shows in the feed. You can also find them all in one place, totalsoccershow.com/EPL.
There you go.
Did you know I'd done that?
I did know you had done that. I didn't know you'd gone EPL, though. How do you feel about that?
It's just shorter.
You okay with it?
Yeah, everybody pressing league.
All right.
That's what it means, right?
If you go home and tell your dad that, is he going to be like, you're no son of mine?
He'll be very confused.
You're not proper English anymore?
He'll be very confused. I did, but I shared with him a video of Adama Traore dribbling, so I think I'm in my dad's good books. Okay. He loves a good old-fashioned winger.
Was he pleased?
He was pleased.
Okay.
Yeah, he loves it. He hasn't seen him cross yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Right.
We'll talk more about Wolves later. Mm-hmm. Before we get to our first team today, Southampton, we should catch up on the transfer news because transfer deadline has come and gone. The window is closed.
In England.
In England, yeah, not in, Spain, Italy, Germany, any of the other buying leagues. But we should talk about what happened in England today, especially as it affects teams we've already previewed. Where would you like to start?
Then. I think Everton is the obvious place to start.
Because it really affects our preview from yesterday, right?
It 100% does. Not from yesterday, but yeah, still, yes. It's
whenever it was.
I just want to say, at least it was 2 days of activity. It wasn't just we got this all wrong yesterday.
Yeah, we didn't get it all wrong. But essentially what we said is Marco Silva, new Everton coach, he has this high line, high pressing style. He needs some quicker centre-backs. So he went out and he did that, right? He got himself a Yerry Mina.
Yep.
Yerry Mina, permanently, like 30 million or so.
£27 million from Barcelona.
£27 million from Barcelona. And on loan, we think possibly... Kurt Zuma, paperwork pending.
Paperwork pending, but it seems like it will be fine to go through. It didn't seem like there were any issues other than they basically submitted the bare bones paperwork that gave them an extra bit of time to get the deal done. It will probably be finalized tomorrow morning, British time.
So, Everton fans, I'm going to say, I think this is great business. This was the missing link in the Everton team, having 2 centre-backs that are 1, mobile, and 2, comfortable on the ball, bringing the ball out of the back. And just for good measure, one of them 6'5".
That doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt at all. I think
can't stop scoring on corners in the World Cup.
It 100% changes my outlook on Everton. It really does. Which I guess 100% is too strong because I was never like they're getting relegated. But it felt like it was going to be really difficult for the system to come into play when you had Phil Jagielka and whomever else as your 2 starting center backs. It didn't feel like they were going to be able to keep up with the pace.
Would have been Michael Keane.
Yeah, exactly.
He is now in trouble.
He is now in trouble. Maybe we see him get a loan in January. Maybe. But for now, I think it will be, at least by the time they bet in, like maybe give it a couple weeks, but I do think it will be Mina and Kurt Zuma as your starters for Everton. And I think that
it'll work.
Also worth noting, they finalized the deal for Bernard. It was a free transfer. That has gone through. And
I'm holding off repeating my joke from yesterday.
All right. And then, thank you for that. Thank you. I appreciate it. And then I was trying to think of one on the fly and I couldn't. And then a loan move for Andre Gomes from Barcelona, the man who it felt like Barcelona were just trying to throw into every single deal.
Did they owe Barcelona a favor? Or were Barcelona like, all right, we'll sell you Yerry Mina, excuse me, I keep mispronouncing it, but you have to take Gomes as well.
I'm going to say they didn't make that official, but it's what I'm choosing to believe, yes, because...
Take this man off our hands.
We'd at least take his wages off our books is probably a big part of it, yeah. And then they get their man, they get another attacking player who I do think is still a good player, Andre Gomes. It's just that at Barcelona, it never really fit when he did get opportunities. It's difficult to not get a run of games and then be like, hey, you've got one. Make sure you impress, but also don't mess up.
I read at least 1 or 2 Barcelona fans saying they thought maybe he was just a bit overawed by the whole Barcelona thing. And when you're always behind Busquets, Rakitic, all those big name players in Barcelona's midfield, he just never had a shot at making that starting 11 permanently. So hopefully this works out for him.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Because I want to get to our 5 teams to preview, but I also don't want to miss any of the transfer news.
I mean,
what else happened today?
The other big one would be Fulham, who signed all the players. They took their spending for the summer over £100 million.
Wow.
They signed Timothy Fosu-Mensah on loan from Man United, Luciano Vietto on loan from Atletico Madrid, Joe Bryan from Bristol for £6 million, and Andre Frank Zambo Anguissa from Marseille for £30 million. I know nothing about that man.
Do you know what position he plays?
He plays expensive, I think. I think he's a winger. Again, could be wrong.
Okay, so a bit of contest maybe for Schürrle and Sessegnon.
Either way, they've signed some players, strengthened considerably. I remain confident that Fulham will not be going down this season.
That's interesting. Just to catch up on Fulham, we didn't mention Marlon Fassi.
No,
and we thought maybe he may be somewhere on the right back depth chart for Fulham.
We think that now.
He's a young American. He's worth keeping an eye on.
He certainly is.
Maybe what I would do, or what I will do, is when you see Fulham lineups, just check the bench occasionally. See if Marlon Fassi's on there.
And especially League Cup games, I think. There's a decent chance he's in there at least on the bench for those.
Anything else we need highlighting before we get to Southampton?
Harry Arter moving to Cardiff from Bournemouth on loan. That speaks to the business that Cardiff were doing on the final day.
That's a change in style for Harry Arter.
A little bit.
Nice football of Bournemouth to the 0-1 long ball.
Yeah, he'll be fine. And Jordan Ayew to Crystal Palace from Swansea on loan. Worth noting, I believe
Do they need him?
They could use some more attacking players, certainly, especially if Wilfred Zaha. If they are going to go with like a front two of Benteke and Zaha, then it gives you another winger that you could put wide to partner Andros Townsend or to pair against Andros Townsend.
Oh, sorry, remember Jordan Ayew or Andre Ayew?
Jordan Ayew.
Oh,
I believe
not as exciting.
I also believe I'm correct in saying that his last 4 teams have all been relegated, and now he's moved to Palace.
So Palace just wanted to curse themselves.
Good luck, Palace. Good luck.
Any more?
I mean, there's lots of other little moves here and there, but those were the ones that seemed most relevant to discuss today.
Okay. Shall we move on to Southampton then?
Sure. Oh, and it's worth noting, we're not really focused at all on European transfers because we're focused on the Premier League
preview week on Total Soccer Show.
Exactly. So there were European transfers that have been happening this past week. We'll get to those when we get to those.
You don't have to cover your bases, Taylor. There's plenty more shows to go.
Well, you know what?
We'll get it all covered.
Bases covered, my friend.
Southampton Football Club. When the Saints go marching in this year, they'll be hoping to finish higher than 17th. They only just avoided relegation last year. Mark Hughes is in charge the whole season. What else is new at Southampton, Taylor?
Well, first, I want to say, is it strange that Mark Hughes is I think he's the last one of those managers, right?
The last Pardew, Pulis,
Allardyce. None of them are employed in the Premier League anymore. It's just Mark Hughes hanging on.
Honestly, it's one of the reasons I'm excited about the Premier League this year, even more than previous years. I think we finally moved beyond that endless carousel of Pardew, Pulis, Allardyce, all those guys.
Except for Southampton until they sack him in November.
Maybe.
But I would say,
is that really what you think is going to happen?
Well, to your point, what's new? One of the things that's new is that they've got a manager who's settled. He's been there since last season. There wasn't a protracted drama about any of their players, so it was a calmer off season. That said, it's really interesting to see the different narratives, because if you read the sort of neutral, newsy narrative, one of the stories is that Mark Hughes took over and saved Southampton from the drop. Then you go and look at the results in the 8 Premier League games he coached.
8 points?
2 wins, 1 draw. So 7 points.
7 points?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, 2 wins, 1 draw, 5 losses. He did have 1 win in the FA Cup, then they lost in the FA Cup. So it's not as though he came in and got this immediate result. In fact, if anything, I think they lost the first 3 or 4 games.
So that's why they finished 17th and not 14th, right? You know what I mean? It was only just survival.
But he got a survival bonus and a 3-year contract, so he is there. How he stays there and how he changes things, that's the one that I'm very curious to watch.
Oh, well, let's get into it then. Okay, here's who's left, which is one of the things I think is interesting about Southampton. Sofiane Boufal has gone, the sort of maverick playmaker who is capable of occasional magic, but also capable of disappointment. He's no longer there. Guido Carrillo, the very expensive Argentinian, I think, striker who came in January, he has been moved on. Jordi Klassie has gone back to the Netherlands, and Dusan Tadic has also, I think he's gone to Ajax now. Dusan Tadic was something getting towards a fan favourite. They at least appreciated his creativity. Is that fair to say?
It is, and it's also strange because a lot of the other names you've already mentioned were players that didn't fit with Mark Hughes' system, or didn't buy in, or he didn't feel like he could, from what I've read, didn't feel like he could use them effectively, whereas Dusan Tadic was one of his key players. So that he moved on, and it was only for 11.4 million euros, I think. So it's not like he got a huge money move that made them have to say yes.
I feel like maybe Tadic was just like, hey, I did my time in the Premier League. He had 4 or 5 years here. He here, as if we're in Southampton right now. He had 4 or 5 years in the Premier League. He enjoyed it. he's gone to the Netherlands. He's going to enjoy playing for Ajax instead. You mentioned Mark Hughes' style.
Yep.
What is the Mark Hughes style? I couldn't quite figure it out, so I'm interested to hear what you think.
What it is right now, at least, what it will be for the season is a 3-5-2 with marauding wingbacks. That's going to be the big one.
So Cedric Soares, the Portuguese right wing back, and Ryan Bertrand, the English left wing back on the left.
Yes. Yeah? So it's going to be those two getting forward, which means your other attackers playing more central to give them width out wide, those wingbacks. The issue has been goal scoring. It was Charlie Austin, but Charlie Austin has been oft injured. And so a big part of their offseason was trying to find a way to replace him and get in a consistent goal scorer. And I think they have done that.
Oh, so yeah, this was transfer news. This was deadline day deal that we didn't mention at the top. I guess we were saving it for here. Danny Ings on loan with an obligation to buy for £20 million. Danny Ings, you may remember, scored a good number of goals for Burnley back in the day. Got the big move to Liverpool. Then was mostly a sub at Liverpool. A few injuries in between that didn't help him out. But I think this is the right move for Danny Ings, right? To maybe leave the Champions League type teams and go be hopefully a starter at Southampton.
Yep. Yeah. I think he will be. And with that in mind, my prediction is actually that Danny Ings will score more goals than either of Southampton's top scorers last season.
Who were the top scorers last season?
Dusan Tadic and Charlie Austin both had 7. And that was with Charlie Austin being injured. He has a great goal scoring record for how regularly injured he is.
Yeah.
But still 7 goals for 2 players as your top scorer. Not ideal, and it's certainly not ideal if you want to, say, change their record of, I think, only winning 4 games at home all season.
Yep.
The way you do that is you get in a consistent striker who's going to play regularly and score goals. Danny Ings, when he was doing that with Burnley, was scoring goals regularly. So you give him those minutes, I think those goals will come.
I went back and looked at some Danny Ings at Burnley
footage.
A lot of stuff in the box, right? You wouldn't call him the most technically polished player, but he is I would call him very decisive in the box, right? In and around the box, like 6-yard box or 18-yard box. Good little movements, good little near post runs, and then it's sort of one touch, then finish, or quick header and finish. I really think that he, same as you, I think he's going to score some goals this year. My prediction is that when it comes time to pay that 20 million fee, which they're obligated to pay, it will feel like money well spent. No one's going to be bitter about it.
So when you say obligated to pay, just to clarify, because I missed this, is it an option to buy or is it an obligation to buy?
No, that's why I'm specifically using the word obligated.
And we talked about this off air, but can we figure out why you would agree to that? Is it essentially just because you
stagger the money a bit, maybe?
Yeah.
There are different reasons at different times. Sometimes it's because a player has already moved too many times. Like I think Benik Afobe might be that he's moved too many times at the deal to Stoke. So that actual transfer has been put off for a while. With Danny Ings, I think it's just maybe they don't want to pay the money straight away.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it especially makes sense and is a reason
it's
why.
It's a way of amortizing the fee.
This
is my guess, by the way. I don't know this for sure. I'm just guessing.
Oh, I would really like to have like a front office executive, like an X1 on, like in an anonymous fashion or something, just to hear about.
It's the problem, right? They don't want to talk about it.
Well, but I would like to hear how it works. Like when. Like, if you're doing construction on your training facility, then maybe you can't afford a player, so you agree that we'll pay you that transfer fee 2 years from now when we can't afford it. Like, I want to know how all that stuff works because I think you're right. That is probably what happened here. Southampton were like, yeah, we want him. We can't pay $20 million now, but we'll pay you $20 million next Tuesday.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. And we'll see you when we pay it. So yeah,
you made it that one. I wasn't taking it that route.
Danny Ings, 20 million will feel like good business. Here's the other reason I think he'll work out is, he might be alongside Manolo Gabbiadini. I took a good look at Gabbiadini. I think this guy is a really good player. I like his runs in behind. I think he's clever. I think he's sneaky, and I think he'll make a good partner for Danny Ings. So Gabbiadini will do this sort of more of the running outside the box, pulling defenses apart. Danny Ings, the guy in the box doing the finishing. That could be a partnership.
All right. Yeah. Well, what about the gentleman from FC Basel, who I know that you were kind of excited about?
So transfers in for Southampton. One signing is Mohamed El Younousi. He is a Moroccan-Norwegian winger from FC Basel.
That's why I hesitated, because he's Moroccan-Norwegian but plays for Norway.
He plays for Norway.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I think, weirdly, him playing for Basel is important as a marker.
Yep.
Because a lot of good players play for Basel, then make the move to the Premier League eventually, and those guys tend to come good.
Or don't, but they're still very good.
Yeah, but Mohamed Salah is the guy I'm thinking about, right? He went Basel, Chelsea, Roma, Liverpool. It's a good place.
Fiorentina in there too, I think.
Yeah, you're right, sorry. But it's a good place to pick up talented players from.
Shaka Shaqiri, Briel Embolo more recently.
So I took a look at El Younousi. I saw some highlights. Do you remember yesterday I was talking about how Jahan Bakash cannot shape a cross.
Oh boy.
El Yunusi can shape a cross.
Relief.
He can shape a cross. So he'll be bending some balls in, maybe for Danny Ings to get on the end of. That could work as well. Here's the thing I'm confused about. Genuinely, this is why I asked the question about Mark Hughes' style. If it's a 3-5-2 and it's wing backs, where do guys like El Yunusi fit in?
That's a great question.
Right? Because they also signed Stuart Armstrong, who I think is a winger. So are we maybe going to see some like 5-4-1 sometimes? Maybe one striker, two wingers, and wing backs?
I mean, it's possible. I'm not Mark Hughes, so I can't tell you definitively.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what happens in preseason happens behind closed doors intentionally because they're trying to figure out their best system and they don't want their opponent to know on opening day, oh, this is what they've been training. This is how they've been utilizing this player so we can effectively prepare against it. It's one of the advantages that smaller teams have in those opening couple of weeks.
I guess also, think off the top of my head, El Yunusi could also play more of a central attacking type role. You know what I mean? He could be part of a midfield three, maybe.
He could, although I believe that's what Stuart Armstrong is supposed to be.
Really?
The 26-year-old Scottish
midfielder as well.
From Celtic. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's where they're expecting to use him. Either way, I think basically the common thread here is signing creative attacking players who can do a variety of things in a variety of different roles to try to increase that goal scoring rate and turn Southampton, basically turn it back into St. Mary's, right? Turn it back into the kind of fortress it was previously under, say, Mauricio Pochettino.
I want to talk about two attackers that you haven't mentioned. I think maybe with Dusan Tadic leaving, with some other midfielders like Buffal leaving, Nathan Redmond could be primed to step up.
How many times has that been written in the last 4 years?
I mean, at least once a year.
There you go.
For example, Nathan Redmond is a guy, you might remember this either last season or the season before when Southampton played Manchester City and Southampton played very defensively. After the game, do you remember the footage of Guardiola coming and putting his arm around Nathan Redmond and almost yelling at him in a way that was like, you're too good to be playing this defensive style of soccer, is my understanding of the conversation that took place. If you watch some Redmond highlights, he's young, I think he's English, creative guy. He's got this wonderful shimmy where he can move it from his left foot to his right foot and like wiggle through you in this really fun, creative way. This could be his moment to step up with Tadic missing. I think the room is there for him to do something this year.
Except that, isn't this another player who maybe wants to be out wide and be attacking and not have as many defensive responsibilities?
I don't know about his feelings about defensive responsibilities. I also, I think a more interior role suits him, right? So if he's like an attacking midfielder behind the strikers, that could really work for him. I'm excited to see what happens with him this year.
And which of these players is going to be stolen by Liverpool in January?
As is tradition.
Yeah, as is tradition. One other thing that I was really surprised by with Southampton, maybe just because I didn't pay attention or enough attention to them at the end of the season, Fraser Forster is, I believe, their third choice goalkeeper now.
He keeps getting knocked down the order,
He has fallen way down the pecking order. And I guess I just didn't see that coming because I thought he was potentially going to be in consideration for England. I guess that he wasn't speaks volumes.
All the Burnley keepers jumped ahead of him.
All the many ones, including Joe Hart, maybe. Alex McCarthy will be the number one. He was handed the starting job this summer. Angus Gunn
earned the starting job this summer.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
Angus Gunn brought in from Man City as well, so it seems like he will be the backup.
Gunny.
So maybe
he's from the Cooligans.
Oh boy. So maybe Fraser Forster gets a move somewhere else.
Why do you care about Fraser Forster?
I think just because I've known of him and been excited about him since he was with Celtic, because he was this like English goalkeeper who was gonna take the reins from Joe Hart, and he kind of had that reputation when I was first paying attention to him. And so in my mind, he's branded as the one who's going to take the reins from Joe Hart. It seems like maybe he has, in the sense of he's no longer England's starting goalkeeper and no longer really in consideration.
So you've been watching his fall from grace,
yes,
essentially. Speaking of, since Forster came from Celtic, I think the Stuart Armstrong transfer is interesting. Can't say I know a lot about him. I'm confused about whether he's a winger or a central attacking midfielder. But I'm always interested to see how a Scottish Premier League player performs in the English Premier League, just to see what the difference is. So I'll have an eye on Stuart Armstrong as a sort of a yardstick for Scotland versus England.
I like it. For Scotland versus England. Final one for me that probably needs to be mentioned. Yannick Vestergaard, 25-year-old, German center back from Gladbach. Signed for 25 million euros. He is large. He is big. He can organize the defense. He will win lots and lots of aerial challenges.
Are you sure he's German?
No, but
he could be Danish.
Oh, he could be Danish. Yeah, but he came from Germany, so it's fine. But he is definitely 6'6", which means I expect him to be the anchor in that defense if they do go with that back three / back five.
He'll be alongside Bednarek and Yoshida.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I'm just naming Southampton defenders. There's one guy I want to talk about. Might be my favourite Southampton player. It is Mario Lemina.
It would carry a lot more weight if you hadn't had to look at your piece of paper to remember his name.
I couldn't remember his first name. I'm always, this is the truth. Because I played Super Mario a lot as a kid, I'm always suspicious that someone's first name isn't really Mario. The name Mario is just stuck in my head.
I'm with you. I always have the way of like having that same conflict, but then also convincing myself that the correct one is wrong. Like I for some reason can't commit. Like even when I'm like, okay, it's definitely Mario Lemina. Then the next time I'm like, oh no. Is it Marcus Lemina? And I convinced myself that it definitely wasn't Mario. I don't know why. It's just one of those things.
I mean, there's no Luigi Lemina. We know that.
That you know of.
Mario Lemina, I feel like
I bet somewhere in the world there's a Luigi Lemina.
That's probably true, but he doesn't play soccer for Southampton.
True.
I really enjoyed watching his highlights. I got a good look at Mario Lemina. I forgot this man loves a spin. He loves to spin with the ball in a way that you don't see enough of in the Premier League.
All right.
So he's like a really good combative defensive midfielder. He's the type of player that I think Manchester City might end up signing. I've got it as a soft prediction that maybe there's a Man City bid for Lemina in January, because we mentioned on the last show that maybe they're thinking of like other number sixes that they can sign. I think if he impresses for Southampton, Guardiola might have an eye on him. He might be getting bidded for in January.
Here's my concern. Is that I feel like Daryl has research fatigue, because so far the things that have been most exciting to you were crosses, shimmies, and spins. I feel like you're just watching the things that are like, ooh, that was a lot of running. I like him.
But I mean, no, it's not just spins. If you watch Lemina, he really does like control a game in some ways, in a way that I think is really exciting. Right? Okay. The spins are the most eye-catching, but there's an overall game as well. If he spent the whole game spinning, I don't think he would be in the Premier League.
Okay. That's probably true. That's probably true. You never know. Like Tasmanian Devil style, it could be confusing. So then, final question I have for you about Southampton before we move on, unless you have lots more to say, is what was your sort of like, I don't know if you do this. One thing I do as I'm researching these teams is I sort of try to put them in a range of places where I think they might be capable of finishing, and that helps me kind of understand what I want to talk about and the way I want to preview them.
I deliberately don't do that because I feel like there's always so many surprises.
Yeah.
And it's hard to... For me, it's hard to say, oh, Southampton feel like a top 12 team, because then, for me, then you have to process what all the other teams do and where they fit into the hierarchy. So for me, it's too hard to think about all the teams at once.
Well, I don't really mean literally in terms of like where they're going to be place-wise. It's more about like heading into, like when I first started this research, it was sort of like, they didn't have a very good season. They barely avoided relegation. Not David Moyes, interchangeable. Mark Hughes is there now. They lost Dusan Tadic. It felt like, ooh, maybe they are a contender for like challenging for relegation, if you want to call it that. Again, the more I read about them, the more I was like, oh, no, this seems like it's going to be a team that's going to be just fine.
I think so, yes. Actually, I did do a quite similar thing. I thought, losing Tadic is a big, big deal. But the more you read about it, the more it's just Tadic is the name we knew. So you assume that he has more importance than probably he actually does at Southampton.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and really, probably Mario Lemina is more important to Southampton than Dusan Tadic. Make sense?
Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? That's why we watch the games. Anything else on Southampton?
Not from me.
All right. Then shall we move it on to our next team?
Yeah, Tottenham Hotspur. Let's talk about Tottenham. Let's talk about all the signings Tottenham have made this summer.
All right.
We just did it.
There we go.
No transfers. You read to me from Reddit that this is the first time in the history of the summer transfer window,
Premier League, I believe,
for the Premier League, that a team has made 0 signings.
That's what the internet tells me.
This is weird. Here's what's interesting. Pochettino nearly did this last summer, right? Do you remember this? And then he last minute signed either Serge Aurier or Lucas Moura. Like, it's almost like he flirted with doing this last year, but he really did it this year.
I genuinely don't remember that.
Yeah, I remember talking about this going into the back end of last summer, and then he cracked at the last minute.
Huh?
So is this Pochettino holding his nerve and just being like, I'm not making any signings, I've got the team I want, all is good? Or is this Pochettino failing to get players that he wanted? I'm really asking you, like, have there been rumours? Has there been Pochettino saying, I want this player, I want that player? Or has it just been dead silent the whole summer?
I'm not a Tottenham fan, so I don't really know what Pochettino has been demanding, what the rumors have all been.
You're not checking TottenhamTransferRumors.com every morning?
I'm not. I believe he had said publicly that he wanted 2 signings, that he wanted to strengthen the squad and I think keep pace with everybody else. And he did say he expected his team to challenge for the title, that just top 4 wasn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, he was probably expecting some transfers, but I guess he is also a professional enough to not come out and say, I didn't get what I wanted and now I'm mad, like maybe other managers in Manchester might have done.
See yesterday's show for details. Okay, so we're going to address this. Is this a positive? Is this a negative? Should Tottenham fans be worried? Should other fans be celebrating? Tottenham's 0 acquisitions in the summer. Like, thumbs up or thumbs down?
I've been saying thumbs up because it felt like they're like a team that knows how they're going to play, what they're going to do. Everybody's on the same page, and they'll be able to perform pretty well.
Can we stick on that then for a second? Why did you think thumbs up? You thought that they just gel together, they keep going together?
No, it's what I've been saying is that with the abbreviated transfer window and the abbreviated preseason because of the World Cup, I think the teams that got their business done, that had time to train as a unit and kind of get everybody on the same page, those are the ones who are going to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
That's why I've been a big fan of City, a big fan of Liverpool, what they've done. Mm-hmm. It felt like Tottenham, just because they hadn't done a whole lot in terms of bringing in new names, would be able to hit the ground running because everybody's on the same page.
And there is the argument, if we're going to get on board with this, that, you know, they're a youngish team, and maybe a team of Dele Alli, Harry Kane, Christian Eriksen, Eric Dyer, they all grow older together, become a better team together, and, you know, don't mess up the rhythm by adding new pieces. I could see why your thumbs would be raising toward the air.
But that's not how any team works, though.
You also, the way you started that sentence suggested that the thumbs were coming down at some point. Yeah.
But I mean, but that argument would imply that you should never, ever sign anybody, because then you might change things slightly and then the chemistry's all off.
Yeah, well, if you're winning, I guess.
I'm sure that's how people will maybe try to explain it to themselves, particularly Tottenham fans, particularly maybe the Tottenham executives.
Yeah. Maybe Daniel Levy.
I think, given the fact that they have so many players who just returned to training from because they went deep into the World Cup.
Yeah,
because
too many Belgian and English players, don't they?
They got a lot,
and a French goalkeeper.
You've got Son Heung-min, who's going to miss the first part of the season because of the Asian Games.
More on that in a second.
Yeah, and then you've got a player like, I think Danny Rose had some drama last season. He wanted to move, I think, to Man United. It seems like maybe that's okay now, but Toby Alderweireld, there was drama up until deadline day, up until like the final minute ticked by.
Did he possibly want to move to Man United as well?
Oh, he absolutely did.
Yeah? Or Man United wanted Toby Alderweireld move to Man United?
I think Jose Mourinho wanted a Toby Alderweireld move. I think nobody in the Man United board who would have signed off on that was willing to sign off on that.
Yeah.
But yes, and so how you solve that and how you get him back in the fold, or maybe you don't, but then you just have this expensive player on high wages not playing for you. I don't know how you deal with that.
Maybe you could still sell him. Right, so the other windows are open, right, until end of August for Germany and Spain, and I think Italy might close earlier. So maybe you still sell Toby Alderweireld, but then you have to look at the squad and say, okay, we haven't stayed the same. Like, because you can argue again, like, we kept Harry Kane, he didn't go to Real Madrid. We kept Christian Eriksen, at least for now, so that's good. But if you start losing players, then you're definitely at a net negative from the previous season, right? You're the same team as last year, minus Toby Alderweireld, World Cup semi-final centre-back.
They were minus Toby Alderweireld for most of last season,
That's
I think. So
but he was at least an option last season. He was a grumpy option.
But then if you sell him, then it's conceding that you should have dealt with that earlier.
I was saying we should have done this in June and got someone else in.
Yeah, exactly, because now you are getting rid of a player and you can't spin it as like, oh no, we're going to bring him back in the fold, he'll be fine. Yeah. And there's not much motivation for him to get back into the fold. I mean, it would have been last season so that he could go to the World Cup. He still went to the World Cup. Yeah. So now if he's getting paid...
That's actually very generous in hindsight from Martinez, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think Martinez is a person who's going to play the players he wants to play. But I guess, so like that, to me, we're talking a lot...
Your other option is Lawrence Simon.
Yeah, exactly. We're talking a lot about Alderweireld, but it's one of the reasons why I am less enthusiastic or like less up on Tottenham than I was maybe even yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can see the argument that maybe, what's the phrase? If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Liverpool had a good year last year. Like, Champions League aside, because they made the final, it adds an extra shine to it. But you could say they both had good seasons. Didn't win the title, but both had good seasons. But then Liverpool went out and spent all this money. We said yesterday, they're definitely a better team this year than last year.
Yep.
You can't say that necessarily for Tottenham, right? You can say Dele Alli's a year older, Harry Kane's a year older. Maybe there's benefit to that, but you look at the upgrade from Karius to Alisson, Spurs can't claim that.
I mean, I go back to it's not a thing that I necessarily like bought into wholly when we were covering the Premier League last year, but there was a prevailing narrative that the soccer in the Premier League was not very good last season, and that aside from Man City and Liverpool when they put it all together, there was some unattractive soccer, which is why you've got a lot of new coaches coming in for a lot of the big clubs.
We talked earlier about the Pardew exodus, right?
Well, just that too, but I mean, Wenger
Wenger
gone, Conte gone, Jose Mourinho doing whatever Jose Mourinho is doing. And it feels like everybody has strengthened this season in a way that Tottenham have not. And so that is one of the things that concerns
me. Relegation?
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. And I still think there's a decent chance they finish third. I don't think they challenge for the title unless everything clicks. But I still would be nervous if I were a Tottenham fan for, say, like you are very much dependent on Harry Kane. Harry Kane is the striker for you. I guess what Vincent Janssen is back for now. I think he'll end up going on loan or maybe being sold because everybody else's window is still open.
Yeah.
But if Harry Kane gets hurt, you've kind of got to fundamentally change the way you play the game.
Well, okay, so what do you do if Harry Kane's hurt? Like in January, maybe you go out and sign someone, right? I guess you just play Vincent Janssen. If he's not scoring, do you give Dele Alli a go up front?
I think they
Son Heung-min.
I think they put Son Heung-min up front more often than they did anything else when Harry Kane wasn't there. But again,
Shiloh Tracy, Shayon Harrison.
I guess you hope that Harry Kane doesn't get hurt right away, because otherwise he's going to be missing when Son Heung-min is also going to be missing.
Maybe there's some youngsters from Spurs coming up. Like I do know that guys like Harry Winks played a role last year and could hopefully play a role this year. So maybe Pochettino's looking at some younger Tottenham players that could be play a bigger role within the first team this season.
See, that's the thing.
Slightly grasping at
straws.
That's
the thing is, like, I feel like in explaining this, you're going with a lot of like coulds and maybes and mights and possiblies, and it's a lot of if everything works, then it will be fine. But I would go the more realistic, in my mind, perspective of Harry Kane has played a lot of games in the past few years. And if he does get injured for a month, I don't know what Tottenham do. It's why my prediction is that I think they'll score their fewest Premier League goals since the 2015 season, which is when Harry Kane took off. And that basically is like a measure for measure comparison. It's as they score more goals, Harry Kane scores more goals. He averages like 30 to 40% of the total goals Tottenham score in the Premier League.
I mean, so, okay, now's probably a good time to talk about Tottenham's style of play.
Sure.
It is very sort of put the ball in front of Harry Kane centric.
Yeah.
Right? And definitely not in a long ball
or at least
way.
enough of a way that he gets credit for the goal. Yeah.
Ooh, burn. But in a very sort of, Christian Eriksen will bend in a weird half cross, half pass thing that completely confuses defenders, but Harry Kane knows what's up. So he's on the end of it at the far post, right? With his head or with some sort of side foot finish. I really love that. I call it the Spurs ball when Eriksen or Dele Alli or someone like that bends it in for Harry Kane to be on the end of it. It's a beautiful thing to see. But you're right. It's a very Harry Kane thing. So if he's not there, does Vincent Janssen know to do that? I would guess probably not to the same degree.
Yeah, I think so. And that's why I think they will score fewer goals because I know this gets predicted a lot, especially with Harry Kane, but I feel like this is the season where he misses more games than he has in the past. And I think he is so important to Tottenham's goal scoring that if Harry Kane isn't there, I don't know if Tottenham scores many.
Is the thing of him missing more games than he has in the past, you're thinking World Cup fatigue?
Yeah.
This is maybe the first time he's had a big summer like this. I know he played some under-21 tournaments back in the day, but that's not the same as playing a whole World Cup.
Well, he was at the Euros, right?
The Euros. Yeah. Well, he was present.
Yeah, and I think these same predictions.
We didn't stick around as long either.
This is true. But these same predictions happened when he came back from the Euros because it was like he played a full season, then he played another full season. Now he's had the Euros. He's got to be tired. And it didn't really happen. So there is that. But then that's another season, then another season, then the World Cup. He hasn't gotten a break. They haven't brought in like an effective reliever for him. They thought they did. It didn't work out. So it just feels like this might be the season when it catches up to him. Then again, I'm using a might now, so you never know. Okay,
here's a weird thing though. I don't disagree with you on all that. But I'm going to predict that this is the August that Harry Kane finally scores.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's counterintuitive in many ways, but in some ways that's why I'm choosing to predict it. So famously, Harry Kane does not score in August. He always waits till September before the goals start pouring in. It just makes narrative sense to me that this is the year where he scores in August and then maybe trails off afterwards.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Maybe around Christmas is when he has to... He has to dial it back a bit, or his ankles get heavy because he had that ankle injury.
I think that's hopeful thinking in my mind. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm so convinced he's going to get hurt. Just other than
fans are mad at you right now. Maybe a little bit of me as well.
I mean that's fine because it's not me wanting that. I enjoy Harry Kane. I enjoy Tottenham are fun to watch. They're a fun team to watch, and I think that's part of it. Is it's more so frustration because I enjoy watching a good Tottenham. They make the league better. They challenge people. They knock points off of Man City and Liverpool. So I still have hope. But if he's not there, it's an obvious area of concern that they haven't dealt with.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just want to say for new people, the fun thing about Tottenham is they go up against the big teams and they'll still take the press to the big teams, right? They're never like we'll sit back and try and hit Man City on the counter type team. So Tottenham always worth watching on the television. Maybe even more so post September 15th when they open the new Tottenham HOTSPUR Football Club Stadium to give it its very temporary name. Yeah. It's about to have a big name sponsor name, right?
Except that you would assume that would have happened already, right?
It feels like it, yeah. But it's just too good an opportunity for some big company to pass up, I think.
Unless Tottenham want to be purists.
Maybe.
You never know.
Well, probably not because they're letting NFL play there as well.
I mean, maybe that was the problem is that they didn't give it a stadium name and thus they didn't have the money to buy forward.
Yeah, that might be it.
I mean, it's worth noting, I guess, in my criticism, like they did sign Vincent Janssen and it didn't work. It might be that Harry Kane just does so many unique things that he can't be replaced.
Maybe he's so good there's no replacement.
That would be worrying for me if I were a Spurs fan.
He does have a very unique skill set of, I talked a lot about how he wasn't fast, but he's still able to always make space to get a shot away. That's almost magical.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it defies normal physics, so therefore it's magic.
All right. I feel like we spent 20 minutes of the 35 minutes so far talking about Harry Kane.
I mean,
should we talk about other people?
Oh, no, I've got another 20 to go.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, how about my Son Heung-min prediction?
All right.
We mentioned him earlier. I think he'll score a load of goals in late August, but not for Tottenham.
Yeah,
because he's going to be at the Asian Games with Korea. Taylor, can you please explain the Asian Games and why Son Heung-min would be leaving the start of the Premier League season to go play in this tournament?
I can explain the second part first, which is that basically in Korea, military service is compulsory unless you get like special exemption, which would be meritorious service to your country
World
outside
Cup semifinals will do it.
Exactly, it has in the past, and winning the Asian Games would do that as well, which is why Tottenham are more than happy for him to go, because it means that he wouldn't have to do however long.
2 years.
I think it's 2 years. Yeah,
which would take a big chunk out of his career.
Yeah, a little bit.
Did you know they did win the Asian Games the last time around, but Son Heung-min didn't go.
Yikes.
Yeah, so he's probably slightly disappointed to have missed out on that.
It's a good motivator to make you win a competition. I think.
Anything else Tottenham related to talk about?
No, other than, Tottenham fans, I'm sorry if you're mad, but I do think it's a concern that's worth raising. I still think they'll be fine. I still think Tottenham, because Arsenal and Chelsea and Man United are going to be trying to figure things out on the fly, and I think there's going to be some frustrations at Chelsea and Man United. I think I think Tottenham will be fine in terms of top four. I don't know if they're going to be closer to City and Liverpool than they will be Man United, Arsenal, Chelsea.
So we're somewhat predicting same again, right? Like high up the table finish, not least because they have this reliable style. Everybody knows what they're doing, but there's not enough new pieces and there's possible tiredness that means, it's not going to be a title challenge for Tottenham this year.
Prove me wrong, Spurs. Prove me wrong.
It'd be enjoyable if they do, right? Because I love seeing Spurs in full flight. All right, before we talk about the W teams, the 3 Ws, the 3 Ws. We're going to end this podcast with 3 wins, 3 Ws. Today's show is sponsored by theathletic.com. Theathletic.com is where you will find all the best soccer sports writing. They announced some transfers of their own on deadline day. The Athletic is expanding its Premier League coverage.
Indeed.
The Big Six, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Man United and Spurs will all have dedicated writers over at The Athletic. So if you're
I'm just saying Daryl put them 6th there. I didn't say they were 6th.
George Qureshi put them 6th. The way I think he listed it alphabetically, very sensibly. Unless Arsenal are top of the league.
You never know.
I don't believe is what's happened. We know some of these writers, and so we're very excited. Ryan Bailey is a guy we know from back in the Goalmouth days.
Yeah, we do.
How long ago is that?
I think 15 years, but also maybe 1 year, I think, thereabouts.
Somewhere between 1 and 15 years ago, we did a podcast called The Goalmouth, and Ryan Bailey was the Friday Goalmouth news show. He says hello to your mother. That should help you remember Ryan Bailey. He's going to be doing all the Man City coverage for The Athletic.
And he did a great article already about the 5 games Man City will lose this season.
Yes, it's
based
really
on like past performance and past conditions.
I'll be honest, I saw the headline and I thought, oh, Ryan, Man City are very, very good. Why are you predicting they'll lose 5 games? I read the 5 that you picked out. It's 1, very funny, and 2, very convincing.
He can write.
I really think there are 5 games that Man City will lose now.
The man can write. I mean, I think they'll lose more than 5, but I think he's nailed some of the 5 for sure.
Good work, Ryan Bailey.
Absolutely. But it's not just Premier League coverage. NWSL Confidential is one that I never thought about reading, because the Secret Footballer is not a thing that I really got into either until I think you introduced me to it. And I was sort of like, okay, yeah, this is interesting. And to see kind of behind the scenes and what the life is for an NWSL player is really fascinating.
It's very different to Secret Footballer, right? Because that was high-end Premier League, champagne, fast cars kind of thing. NWSL Confidential really is about being on an NWSL team and trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, the Secret Footballer wasn't talking about host parents.
Yes, exactly. Also, should mention, I'm going to be part of the Premier League coverage for The Athletic. I'll be doing in some ways I'm the most important writer because I'm doing the other 14 teams.
You're doing all of them.
I mean, sort of, any interesting news from the other 14 teams I'm going to be pitching furiously to the Athletic.
Gotcha. I didn't know if you had like the market cornered on those remaining 14 teams. Like, wow, all right. George has entrusted you with responsibility.
Yeah, I'm the beat reporter for 14 teams. If you would like to subscribe to the Athletic, you can get 40% off and support the Total Soccer Show at the same time. If you go to theathletic.com/TSS August. TSS August. I'll put the link in the show notes. That will get you 40% off a subscription to The Athletic.
Indeed. So that's TSS August, 40% off. Thank you to The Athletic for sponsoring today's program. Now back to the Premier League, starting with our first W, Watford.
All right, let's pick up a W, Taylor. Watford, coached by, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Javi Gracia.
Yep.
Does that feel right?
It doesn't, but yes, that's what it is.
I kept mistyping it as Javi Gracia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Javi Gracia is the coach of Watford. He took over from Silva after Silva was fired for looking longingly at Goodison Park last season. My understanding, I'll be honest, I didn't watch a lot of Watford last year. My understanding is that essentially Gracia kept playing the same style that Silva played for Watford, right?
I think
like
so,
high line, high pressure, kind of high octane, high defensive tackling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's pretty much what we expect to continue to be the case this season for Watford.
So I looked at Watford's roster and I couldn't help thinking, this is a mishmash of players.
It is.
Right? And it's players from all over that don't seem to fit together until you think about the Gianpaolo Pozzo situation, right? So Pozzo owns Watford. He owns Udinese in Serie A. And I think he used to own Granada in La Liga. And there's definitely a weird system where when you're a player for any of these three teams, you essentially get moved around all the Pozzo teams.
Yeah.
And that's why you've ended up with this weird collection of players at Watford Football Club.
You think that's the sole reason?
I mean, it's part. Why would there be another reason?
I mean, because they've accumulated the people that they wanted to play for the team. Like, okay. I guess I would hesitate.
That's a more positive spin.
I would hesitate to say that it's like just because the Pozzos move players around to some weird shell game. Like, I mean, they're definitely constructing a roster that they think will work. But I'm with you that it's not one that, if you're new to the Premier League, you would look at Watford and maybe not know any of the names. Yeah. Maybe you'd know a couple from like past teams they've played for. But it is one of the more confusing teams for me, at least.
I'll say this. When I started watching some extended highlights of some of the more important players whose names I kind of recognized but didn't know a lot about, I got more and more impressed the more I watched. Yeah. There's a lot of very talented players on this team. Yeah.
I guess I feel like the other way to spin this would be, because I've been thinking about, like, we know Billy Bean is working with, is it Liverpool? I forget who he works with to like help them sign players. Maybe it's Roma or somebody.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But I've been wondering about, like, how do teams go about basically doing Moneyball? How do you find value in a time when the Premier League is known to have so much money that it's really difficult? It feels like maybe that's what Watford are doing, is that they've gone out and found like undervalued or underrated players for any number of different reasons, and they've brought them into this team, and they seem to have found a way to make them perform as a collective whole in a very good way.
Okay, so let's maybe, before we talk about maybe the new players and the
apparently I think Watford are going to finish higher than Tottenham. I guess what's happening here.
Before we talk about maybe the transfers and the ins and outs, let's talk about some of these players that maybe you and I weren't as familiar with through ignorance, basically, right, of not watching Watford enough last season, but we've looked at now. Who's impressed you? Because I've got a list of like 2 or 3, so maybe we can go back and forth with players that impressed us and why.
I will say, like, I remember a few of the players, don't get me wrong. The one that always stood out to me whenever I would watch highlights or when I would watch Watford play was Abdoulaye Doucouré. Okay. I think it's maybe because of the white shoes. The white shoes stand out against the yellow and the red.
You are a noticer of cleats.
I like a shoe. But he runs that midfield in the 4-2-3-1. He'll be one of the 2 holding-ish midfielders, but he is obviously more than happy to get forward. Yep. But he will destroy some people in a tackle. He will score some goals going forward. He is one that I think a lot of people expected would get a move. Yes. I think he was the fans' player of the season, and it was sort of the way that ceremony was treated was as a little bit of a like, goodbye, thank you so much. Yeah. And yet he's still there. And I'm kind of surprised by that. And I think maybe Watford fans, not so much surprised as relieved that he's still there.
That sounds right. Here's my experience with Doucouré is I watched the highlights, probably similar highlights to what you saw. And I thought, I've been watching for 10 minutes. I've seen him do everything. Yep. I've seen him do a little bit of everything. I bet if I go look at this man's stats, he will have a beautiful spread of stats. You know how some people like are heavy on one stat but light on another? I was right. Doucouré has tackles, interceptions, passes, assists, goals, dribbles. Like his numbers are a little bit of everything. Oh, yeah. It's a very nice spread.
Absolutely. So that's one for me. Who else impressed you?
I looked at Christian Kabasele, the centre back. He is, I don't know if he's Belgian or he's from DR Congo, maybe both. But I think if there was a stat for slide tackles, he would lead the league in slide tackles. This man loves a slide tackle, very good at executing one as well.
Is that good or bad for a centre back?
It's good to watch.
Well said.
There's also a lot of blocks and like simple tackles and more interception type things. But you know me, I'm impressed by a slide tackle.
Yeah.
So more just for our listeners' benefit, keep an eye on Christian Kabasele playing centre back for what?
Yep. And he is part of that in the back four. It'll be him and Craig Cathcart. That is like the settled, established back four for them. Or back two, I guess, in terms of the centre backs.
Interesting. All right. Also for me, Nathaniel Chalaboa. Yeah. Maybe pronounced it incorrectly. Maybe it's
Chalaba.
Chalaba. Yeah. Okay. Nathaniel Chalaba. Not dissimilar to Decore in that he will charge you down and win the ball back.
Plays right alongside him.
But plays right alongside him. But then when he gets it back, he's very capable of doing silky smooth things with it. So to me, the 4-2-3-1, Watford's midfield holding two, fearsome.
Yep.
Chalaba and Decore, absolutely fearsome in midfield. Really, really impressive guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
See, suddenly we're trying to make this case.
Yeah, right.
And then going forward, we think it will be Jared Deulofeu, who is signed, but has not trained yet, which is disconcerting, I would say. Will Hughes and Roberto Pereira across that attacking three with Andre Gray up top.
I was impressed with Roberto Pereira.
Yeah, he makes things happen.
He does make things happen, right? Really interesting playmaker. Loves an outside of the foot pass. I enjoy that as well. But a lot of sneaky through balls from Pereira, like passes that no one else sees coming, he puts them through.
Yep.
Here's my concern with Watford.
What you got?
You mentioned Andre Gray. He is not to the same standard as the very talented midfield we just mentioned.
Yep.
Troy Deeney is sort of the other option at striker. He is not to the same standard as...
And is declining statistically year on year.
As all the other midfielders we just mentioned. But here's my second counterintuitive prediction of the show. Troy Deeney's numbers you just talked about, they've been going down, right? First season in the Premier League, 21 goals. Second season, 13 goals. Third season, 10 goals. Fourth season, 5 goals. I think he reverses the trend this coming season just because there's so much, the supply line to him is so heavy that he's going to put away more than 5 goals this season. And the graph will start to go upwards again for Troy Deeney.
All right. All right, I can see that.
There's also a bit of homerism here. Troy Deeney is from Birmingham. He's got a nice, thick Midlands accent. It really feels like home when Troy Deeney talks.
I was wondering what it was. I was wondering what the connection was.
And the final thing that sealed this for me today is Alison Bender. She is a Sky Sports reporter. I think she listens to the Total Soccer Show.
Really?
She may have mentioned during the World Cup that she listened to us during the World Cup.
Hi, Alison.
Hi, Alison. She said that she interviewed Troy Deeney either today or yesterday. And it was the first time in her entire career that a player went to social media afterwards and thanked her for interviewing them. Okay. Normally it's the other way around, right? Normally it's the reporter has to say, thank you to Troy Deeney for making time for me today. Apparently Troy Deeney thanked Alison Bender.
So like 10% of this is Troy Deeney good guy? It makes you feel a little bit more? Right.
20% is Troy Deeney good guy. 20% is his accent. The rest is his goal scoring ability.
Wasn't it Troy Deeney? I may be totally wrong, but wasn't it Troy Deeney who talked about Arsenal?
Yes.
How he knew that if you like smash them once, then they back off.
He went on Sky Sports and said, "Here's what I did when I went on. I always go at the big guy and just try and knock him over, and I see who's up for it. And there's footage of him just knocking Per Mertesacker over.
All right.
And then he was basically saying, this is when I knew Arsenal were not ready for this.
So Troy Deeney's a good interview, is what we've learned
he's
here.
He's a good interview, but still a capable goal scorer. Only 30 years old. Mm-hmm. Troy Deeney's graph goes upwards this year.
Well, another theoretical goal scorer is my prediction. Adalberto Peñaranda, I say, is going to generate headlines in some form.
Okay.
That's what I've got for you.
Here's what I know about Peñaranda. I watched him at the U20 World Cup, I believe, for Venezuela, and was very impressed.
Yep.
Ever since, I've only heard negative things about him.
Yep, pretty much. He is a 21-year-old Venezuelan forward. He can play on the wings. He can play central.
Bleached hair, right? He's got like bleached blonde hair.
He did in that tournament. I think it might be gone. I don't really know if he still has it.
If he hasn't reapplied it, it's definitely grown out by now.
It's difficult to say because he doesn't play very often.
We don't see much of it, right?
Yeah, he tries weird stuff. That's part of the reason why I think he'll get some attention.
Yep.
I watched him try to do a rainbow to get out of like a pressure in a corner.
See, that's why I love him.
I watched him try to do a back heel in his own 18 when he was trying to break on the counter.
You keep saying try. Did neither of these things come off?
No, the back heel came off. The rainbow did certainly not come off.
What happened when a professional player, very talented professional player, tries a rainbow.
I mean, the ball went, he didn't move because there were two defenders there and they're just like, no.
So he did execute it, went over his head and over the defender's
I think he tried
head.
to juggle it over. He did like lift up, juggle, and then flick over the top. And the defenders were just like, no, we're good. But it's like trying weird stuff that I think will get some attention.
Yeah.
But then his backstory is very interesting.
Okay.
Signed a 4.5 year deal with Watford in 2016, but could not get a work permit. So he's been on loan to Udinese, Granada, Malaga. You mentioned a couple of those before.
Yeah. He's on the Pozzo circuit.
Yeah, he finally gained a Spanish passport last season, which is why he will be at Watford this season. But
that's what that was about.
Yes, but then there's also the reports that he didn't want to go to training, that he skipped training at times. Mm-hmm. So he ended up only playing 12 games, scoring 0 goals in 2 seasons on loan at Malaga.
That was the bad stuff, me not hearing about him.
And yet there are expectations that he may be the striker if Andre Gray struggles, if Troy Deeney can't get it going, that it may be Peñaranda who could come in and try to get some goals.
There's another striker, Stefano Akaka.
Yeah.
But I've heard his name. Mm-hmm. I've not seen his name on the score sheet many times, so I'm not sure how many chances he will get either.
Yeah, but it just feels to me like Peñaranda, he does weird stuff on the field, can score goals, makes interesting decisions. I feel like there's going to be a story about him this season. So he's going to get headlines one way or the other. Could be a screamer that wins the game. It could be that he forgets who he plays for and goes to the wrong training facility.
Either way, we'll be there for it. So normally we do the ins and outs, transfer ins and outs first. We're doing it last with Watford. The big out is Richarlison. Richarlison eventually followed Marco Silva to Everton for, I think, £50 million. So in some ways, their best attacking player is a Ghana, right? Replacing him, did you mention Deulofeu?
Yep.
Is in any other attackers? I see Mark Navarro, the right back, is in. I can't say I know a lot about him.
I mean, they're similar to Leicester in that one big outgoing transfer basically allowed them to sign 7 players. They've got 7 new players coming in. Deulofeu, in terms of attacking players, Ken Sema, 24-year-old left midfielder from Östersund, come in for $2.25 million.
We don't know much about him.
Not a lot. No, we do not. I mean, and that's pretty consistent. Domingos Quina was signed today from West Ham. He's an 18-year-old central midfielder, so I don't know how much playing time he's going to get. I would say, strangely, one of the biggest ones was the one that I don't have a transfer fee for because it's undisclosed, but it's Ben Foster, the goalkeeper, coming in from West Brom. It's expected that he
used to be at Watford. Man United signed him from Watford way back in the day.
I can't remember if they signed him from Watford or if they loaned him to Watford while he was playing for Man United.
But he's been there before.
He has. Yeah. But I think he will be the starter. He'll replace Aurelio Gomez. And I think he'll be...
I forgot Gomez was still around.
There.
Yeah.
And I think it will be Foster for this season at least. Foster, we've talked about him many times on the show, is in my opinion, a very good shot stopper. He's a reaction goalkeeper. He is not the goalkeeper you want if, say, you're controlling possession for 90 minutes and you want to make sure that your goalkeeper can help facilitate the attack. But if you need somebody to make those stops, to come out off their line and punch that ball clear, that is Ben Foster, and I think that's a good signing for Watford.
All right, so there is your Watford preview. Up next, West Ham United.
Oh, boy.
West Ham United finally have themselves a high-profile manager. It's Manuel Pellegrini, Manchester City title winner. Manuel Pellegrini is your West Ham United manager. This, for some reason, I'm not a West Ham fan, but this makes me feel more secure for West Ham.
Why is that?
Just because it's a name that has a track record of knowing what he's doing. As far as I'm aware, there are no disasters trailing Pellegrini.
No, I think that's correct. The hesitation I had there was it's crazy how stuff that was so important and worth talking about only 6 months ago, I had completely forgotten about because of the World Cup, because of the tour. But I had completely forgotten about all the unrest and the open riot that happened at West Ham.
All right, give us a refresher.
Well, it was essentially just complete dissatisfaction with the way the club was going. I think people weren't even thrilled when David Moyes was brought in as sort of the temporary savior.
Yeah.
But it started with the frustrations of the Slavan village. It boiled over into fans protesting the owner's box. I think there was a pitch invasion. There was definitely a pitch invasion because the guy sat at midfield with the flag.
To commemorate an earlier pitch invasion that had turned things around back in the day.
Yeah.
Right? And I also know there are problems with the new ground. Not everybody's happy at this weird new stadium with an Olympic running track around it.
And it feels like, so with all that in mind, it feels like a lot of steps have been taken and progress has been made in terms of making the fans believe in West Ham again. And from everything I read from all the fan blogs, it seems like this is the most optimistic West Ham fans have been starting a season in a very long time.
Okay, so who, aside from Pellegrini as manager, who else?
Everyone.
have West Ham United brought
everyone. I would say this is going to be one of the interesting things is they have a bloated squad. They've got a lot. I think they have 31 players on the roster. They have to trim that to 25.
Yep.
I think they will probably be offloading some people in January. More on that later. They've signed 9 players. As of today, 9 players.
Give me the headlines.
All right. Felipe Anderson.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. Issa Diop, 21-year-old French center back from Toulouse. They broke their record to sign him for £22.5 million. Then they broke it again to sign Felipe Anderson from Lazio. He's a right winger, 25 years old, for £33.5 million.
Is that how much they paid for him?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right. I have predictions about both these guys.
Sure.
If you'll permit me to interrupt and talk about these guys.
I will.
So, Felipe Anderson, I've had a good look at him at Lazio and in some preseason stuff for West Ham. This guy is very good at trying to make something happen quickly. Mm-hmm. Like, I see a lot of footage of him receiving the ball and not just like taking a touch, looking around, seeing what's up. When that ball's coming to him, he's receiving it and turning and going all at the same time. He often loses the ball doing that, but he often makes things happen. So I'm going to predict, this is kind of a hard thing to quantify, but Felipe Anderson will become known as a match of the day player.
Yeah, I can see that.
This is a phrase that people, I know you know this phrase, but this is a phrase that people use in England. There are a lot of players that look very good on the BBC Match of the Day highlights program because they're heavily featured on the highlights because there's lots of things involving them. But there's like a whole other half of the game that doesn't make the highlight package where Felipe Anderson turns into someone and loses the ball. Like that gets edited out. But when he turns into someone,
you don't need to see
goes
that.
around them, gets down the wing, crosses in, and like Andy Carroll scores, that makes the highlight package. So Felipe Anderson is going to be a match of the day.
It's adorable that you think Andy Carroll's going to score, but sure.
Well, I was just picturing the tallest West Ham striker, not necessarily the bestest West Ham striker.
Yeah, that checks out. But Felipe Anderson is a player who was definitely linked with Man United. I believe linked with Chelsea, a couple of, I think Bayern Munich maybe, or everyone's linked with Bayern Munich.
And the fact that he's at West Ham is probably the reason he's a match of the day player.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but I think it's also, maybe it shows, it's a sign of what West Ham are trying to do is show we belong in the Premier League. We are willing to spend money. Please don't storm the owner's box again. I mean, so that's a big one. I mean, he is a left winger, as we said. We think he'll be on the, he's a right winger. We think he'll be on the left-hand side, but I cut you off because you were going to do one more specific prediction.
You mentioned Issa Diop, the other expensive signing. This is a 21-year-old French centre-back. They signed him from Toulouse for £22 million, I believe is what you said. It was a record at the time before Felipe Anderson. He is going to have a high-profile embarrassment in the early going of the season.
Oh, boy.
But by the end of the season, everyone's going to love him. How about that?
So why do you think he'll have one embarrassing moment?
Because he is one of those centre-backs that whenever he sees the ball coming, he's thinking, I can win that. My long legs can win that. And he goes charging out, gets his long legs in there. There's lots of video of Issa Diop winning balls in Ligue 1 because he charges out and gets there first. Much as I love Ligue 1, Premier League is a higher standard. There's going to be a striker that just dances around him as he extends that long leg. You know what I'm saying? So he's going to overcommit and get beat early in the season, and that's going to be our match of the day. But towards the end of the season, his body of work, as he sort of maybe gets acclimated to the Premier League, I think he'll really, really, really come good from what I've seen. But there'll be a high-profile mistake.
I got to say, you have actually made me a little bit nervous for West Ham because one of the consistent criticisms I saw of Pellegrini is that he creates these great attacking teams that have lots of good interplay and they're really fun to watch. Defense, not so much. And he, I think, has said, defense isn't always my priority. So if he signed a player who is prone to charging out and trying to make plays, I don't know if Pellegrini is the one to be like, no, we must play this system. You have to change the way you play.
But here's the thing. From what I've seen, 85% of the time he gets the ball, right? So it's mostly good. But there'll be a highlight where it's Gabriel Jesus jumping around him and he's gone.
Oh, boy. Yeah, boy.
De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne is probably a better example.
But we think Issa Diop will start at centre back.
I think so. I mean, you don't spend £22 million and not start someone, right?
I would say not. Yeah. So we think he'll be there. The other big signing who will be attacking, so we said Anderson probably left wing, Yarmolenko of Borussia Dortmund.
I'm not sure this is a great signing.
Why is that?
Just I don't know. He definitely was never really first choice at Borussia Dortmund. For example,
not everybody can beat out Christian Pulisic. Exactly.
This feels to me like Dortmund offloading Yarmolenko and almost spotting West Ham and being like, there's a sucker.
I think
we'll give him to them.
I think he was previously linked there. I think it's a player that they had publicly pursued, and then he chose Dortmund instead. Now he's there. Make of that what you will. But again, it's a statement of intent at a time when I mean, West Ham sold Cheku Kouyaté for about £10 million.
He was important though, right? He was like a key central midfielder.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. But my point is simply that like they had Reece Burke, Domingos Quina, who I mentioned before. Like their total transfer money coming in was like £11 million, I think, maybe 12.
I see.
So to spend a lot more than that, again, it shows to me that they're out there trying to spend money, trying to show they're competitive, trying to compete.
But again, does spending money necessarily mean you're doing the right thing?
I mean, we'll find out. Yeah. We'll find out. I mean, it does seem, as I said, it's a bloated is maybe a harsh term, but it's a squad that is deep, strangely.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you look at their forwards, if they play, there's a decent chance they do just do 4-3-3. They have one central striker. That's probably...
Because it's Anderson and Yarmolenko on the wings. Yeah.
So then that would probably be Marko Arnautovic, but that leaves out...
Which is weird, right? Because most people think of him as a winger, but he essentially became a striker last season. He's, in some ways, he's the Dries Mertens of the Premier League. A winger turned striker, and it turned out he maybe should have been a striker all along.
Slightly larger than Dries Mertens, but yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But, I mean, if it is just the one striker, that leaves out, they brought in Lucas Perez from Arsenal, but then you've also got Chicharito, you've got Andy Carroll, so it feels like there's tons of attacking options there. They have Adam Snodgrass, they've got Mikel Antonio out wide. Like there's a lot more depth.
Sam Allardyce's favorite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, so you've got depth all over the place. Lanzini, Obiang, Declan Rice in the middle.
Can we stick on Lanzini? That's a big thing this year. Lanzini is a key attacker for them. I think he's out like until the new year. I think Lanzini's going to miss at least the start of the season. Yeah. Wasn't he in the Argentina World Cup squad?
I believe he was.
Then got this. I don't know what the injury is, but it's bad enough that he's out until January 2019.
He got some polyitis, and that's what happens. But with all that said, that's why my prediction is that at least one big name will move in January, and I feel like it will be one or both of Andy Carroll and Javier Hernandez.
Interesting, because Arnautovic will be eating up all the centre forward minutes.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And I also think that with the amount that 33, 22, 17, 7, 4, 3, and then a couple free transfers in there. They've spent a lot of money, and I do think that if they want to try to reinforce in January, which they almost certainly will, there might be that, well, you got to sell some players before we can buy any more. That might be one of those two forwards.
There's a player we haven't mentioned who cost $0 in transfer fee. I'm sure he's getting decent wages.
Mr. Wheelchair?
Jack Wilshere, give him his proper name, show some respect, please, has joined West Ham United from Arsenal.
Yep.
I think this could be a good career move for him. I think he kept stalling at Arsenal. I know there's the wheelchair injury stuff, but if he can just get a full season of always being in the first choice 11, that's going to be great for Jack Wilshere.
Yeah, and he's one, we've talked about a couple different players like this in our previews that, like, I remember him going to Bournemouth and being like, well, that's that. Like, he's going to go play for Bournemouth and that's going to be great, but he's not going back to Arsenal. And he did so well at Bournemouth. He goes back to Arsenal and he did okay. But I think you're right. He can't get the consistent string. He gets the injuries. It does feel like he's a player when he's kind of a big fish. It helps him. He's surrounded by a lot of big fish, but I do think you're right that this move to West Ham, it's not like a dramatic change where he's moving from London to some terrible place like Birmingham. In your face, Daryl.
We'll send Troy Deeney after you.
Please don't.
And we'll see who's laughing.
Please don't. I mean, it would rip me apart. I'm pretty sure.
I'm going to tell him you're softer than Per Mertesacker. Then we'll see what happens.
Not sure that's possible. But it feels like it is a smart move for him to make at this point in his career, certainly.
Yep. And here's another thing. I'm going to look forward to seeing Jack Wilshere.
He's 26.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a very talented player. Yep. I love the way he holds onto the ball. I love the way he finds space, gets out of trouble. I love the way he passes. He can pass and move. So a successful Jack Wilshere is fun to watch. He could be the fulcrum of a really good West Ham team.
Yep.
Or the opposite could happen.
Yeah, or the opposite could happen.
And he could get injured and this whole thing is a disaster.
Also that.
Yeah.
Speaking of potential disasters, there's another player who West Ham brought in.
Who's
I believe it was today. It was a deadline day signing. That would be Carlos Sanchez. Yep, Colombian.
The Carlos Sanchez.
The La Roca, I think he's called.
Wow.
The 32-year-old defensive midfielder from Fiorentina. Undisclosed transfer fee, but he is expected to maybe not necessarily start right away, but he will be one of the hard men as a holding midfielder for West Ham.
So, Pellegrini likes a couple of tough guy central midfielders.
Yep,
right?
yep.
So if you don't know Carlos Sanchez,
and a red card waiting to happen as well.
Yeah, he's the guy that handballed against Japan for Colombia in the very early minutes of the World Cup, and he's the guy that jumped on Harry Kane's back and gave away a penalty. Not a successful World Cup for Carlos Sanchez.
No, which is, from what I understand, sort of the outlier, because it's usually he performs very well for Colombia, doesn't do as well at club level. I saw lots of
Aston Villa he was with for a while.
And I think the thing I kept seeing on the West Ham message board was like, just disregard what he did for Villa. That wasn't him. So make of that what you will.
Maybe he's joined West Ham so he can sort of wear the same colours again and succeed.
There we go.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a claret and
That's
blue
what it is.
second take.
I like how strongly you stated that.
Did you give your West Ham prediction?
That they'll sell somebody in January.
They'll sell somebody. Yeah, they kind of have to, right?
Yeah, but not just somebody, a big quote unquote name.
To be fair, I think it's worth underlining this. The Premier League transfer window is closed. The likes of Carroll and Chicharito could still join a La Liga team. I don't think Andy Carroll's going to venture over to Spain, but I could see Chicharito doing that.
I feel honor bound to say that I did say they'll move in January. So if they move before then I don't get my point. Similar to when I said it was going to be the season of Batshuayi. And now I think he's been loaned to Valencia.
That's one we didn't update at the start of the show, right? We thought Batshuayi had a good shot at being Chelsea's starting striker. Now it looks like he's going to be loaned to Valencia.
I choose not to accept that that's happened.
We don't know for sure yet, do we? Ready for the final team?
Sure.
Last, but by no means least.
Yeah, maybe least.
Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. So my team, full disclosure, the team I support, back in the Premier League after a really successful season in the Championship. That's what's new at Wolves. But also lots and lots and lots of signings.
Yeah.
They've really... My Twitter has been going off because I think every time Wolves are linked with a player or sign a player, a lot of people tweet at me to either ask me, how is this happening, accuse Wolves of cheating, or offer some sort of congratulations.
Or some combination of the three. Yeah. It's the first time that I can remember, and I mean this sincerely, this isn't a joke, that like we kept seeing them linked with players, and I was like, okay, eventually they're just being linked with people because that's what's happening. They're signing so many players and then almost every single time, I think like Pep was the only one where he didn't end up going to Wolverhampton. I guess Zinchenko. Yeah. Those are the two. Outside of that, we kept being like, surely they're not. Oh no, they signed him, but they won't get. Okay, that got him.
There was a brief moment. I forgot where we were. We might have been in Kansas City when Wolves were linked with Yerry Mina, and I got very excited.
That's right.
But I think he was always going to a bigger team like an Everton or so. Yeah.
Well, we'll see where Wolverhampton finish because I feel like there's a decent chance they're at least top 10. But they did make 12 signings.
They did.
Decent amount of signings.
We can't list them all, can we?
No, but we can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them were players that were there on loan last season that they've made permanent.
Can I just say, of all of those...
And then one of them they've already sold.
Benicophobia has come and gone very quickly. Turn a quick £2 million profit.
Yeah, why not?
Good business. Good at business. The most important for me signing is a guy who was on loan last year, and we finally signed permanently earlier this summer. We being Wolves. Sorry, I did that. Willy Boly.
Oh, that's not the name I thought you'd say. Right.
French left centre-back for Wolves. I did an interview with Aaron Dolores for Black Arrow FC recently, and I think I said there was a moment last season where Willy Boly was playing left centre-back for Wolves. He was under pressure in defence, and instead of booting it clear, like normal Wolves defenders do, he lifted it over the attacker's head, collected it the other side, strolled upfield, and passed the ball to start a passing move. And that was when I realised, this team's different. This team has some swagger and confidence about it. And a lot of it starts with Willy Boly's composure on the ball. For me, he's a key signing. I think he'll actually do really well in the Premier League. He's got all the defensive gifts, but also that mental composure that I think you need to succeed in the Premier League. So remember the name, Willy Boly.
You just saying that, I want to say this. We've had some people say, like, they're just getting into the Premier League. They're just getting into club soccer. Who should they support?
Yeah.
I know I'll probably get some stick because I'm a Man United fan, but I do think if you're going to choose a new team and you don't want to go with one of the big ones, Fulham is going to be very fun to watch. And I genuinely think choose Wolves. And you can always explain it as Daryl Grove likes Wolves and he talked me into them. But just for stuff like, you're right, Willy Boly's amazing, but just the fact that you can root for Willy Boly. Like that name alone, I want just Willy Boly on a jersey.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So the other signings are mostly Portuguese.
Well, the name that I thought you were going to say that I think is a huge bit of business is Diogo Jota, because it felt like he was one, along with Ruben Neves, who maybe was going to get some offers, and I came from Atletico Madrid. It felt like Madrid could have sold him for a lot more than they did. Wolves ended up buying him permanently for £12.5 million.
That's part of the George Mendes magic.
Yep.
We should talk about this for people who don't know.
I'm too busy being angry over here. Yeah, go ahead.
Very quick summary. The way Wolves have done this is they were bought by a Chinese investment group. The Chinese investment group representative, Jeff Shi, is good friends, apparently, good business friends with George Mendes, super agent of Cristiano Ronaldo, Jose Mourinho, and lots of talented Portuguese players. And essentially what's happened is Mendes has persuaded some very talented Portuguese players over the last year and a half to sign for Wolverhampton Wanderers when maybe they wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And because he represents some other places that he's connected to, I think he's sort of persuaded them to take lower transfer fees than they should have. Hence signings like...
Wait, who's the them?
Like Porto, for example, letting Ruben Neves go for £15 million.
I hadn't thought about it like that. How do you think he was it? Like, do you think that's an agent can do that? To be like, no, just take $5 million less?
I think maybe just as a favour, as opposed to anything too nefarious. You know what I mean? And even Ruben Neves would not play in the Championship if George Mendes didn't say, hey, trust me, this will get you to England. We're going to do something with this team, and then maybe this is good for you in the long run.
I mean, I'm sure they're also paying him pretty handsomely, the individual players. I think you're absolutely right that it took that sort of convincing and that sort of vouching from Mendes to get those players to Wolverhampton. I don't know if I go with you on the idea that like he persuaded clubs to sell them for less. Other than that,
but it's all part of a system because then he'll get Porto some players for less in the future. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like this weird bit of subterfuge where they're all in on it together.
Yeah, at a certain point that doesn't work though. You can't keep getting people cheaper and cheaper players. Eventually someone's not going along with it.
I'm just saying that Wolves got Ruben Neves for 15 million and they should not have. And somehow that happened. Right?
I feel like this is guilt that you don't need to have. Like you don't need to, I mean, think of how much money everybody else is spending and you've got a country owning a team. Mm-hmm. Like, I think you're fine to have an agent help you get good players.
Well, it's not so much guilt, it's just explaining how this weird thing is happening. You know what I mean? And I think the extra thing to point out is that the league investigated it of like, is this a bit dodgy? And the essential conclusion was that because George Mendes doesn't officially work for Wolves, he's just friends with the owner, he can do whatever he wants. So an agent can influence transfer policy and send his players there, especially if he doesn't work for the team, then there's no interference.
Yeah. And I mean, I know
no collusion.
There were lots of investigations, both from the Premier League, from the FA, from the whatever the championship organizing committee is. Thank you. So there were lots of different investigations and looks into this, all of them cleared, as you said. I also think, if I'm being maybe naive, and that's fine, is that like they had a plan, and I think so often teams like I think about Malaga, who were going to be this team, who were going to rival Madrid and Barcelona. They were going to be the Spanish Man City. That they're going to have all this money. And you can have a plan and you can say these things, but just having the plan doesn't mean you execute it. But you look at what they did last season and getting Nuno, that's a coup. Like, who was the manager? Was it
Walter Zenga?
Yeah, how'd that go?
It looked like a disaster.
Exactly.
So it was an Italian manager who bounced around everywhere. I didn't even know if he spoke Portuguese. But then they were sending him all these Portuguese players, all these George Mendes players. None of it fit together. It didn't work at all. When Nuno Espirito Santo came in at the start of last season, he didn't even have long to put the team together. But he knew Ruben Neves. Yeah. He knew a lot of these Portuguese players. They understood his style. All the pieces suddenly fit together. When you put the jigsaw pieces together, it made the Premier League logo.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I like that jigsaw puzzle. I'm sure that is a thing that you can buy for way too much money.
The instructions were in Portuguese.
But it's also, it just feels like one of those things where if you're playing for a club and you want a change of scenery, you might look to the Premier League. And it could be like a little ruthless, like, do I want to jump in with West Ham, who are kind of desperate? And then you look down, like in last season, that is. And then you look down at the Championship where like Nuno's there and he's bringing in exciting Portuguese players and they're kind of killing it and they're kind of running away with it. And it looks like that could be fun and they're going to be in the Premier League and I'll make some money and it'll be great. And I get why that would be appealing to players as well, that it's a young club who are financially backed from a big city, and it could be. No, isn't Birmingham like the second biggest city?
Yeah, but Wolverhampton's a separate city.
Yeah, that's well, whatever. You're close enough.
From a big area.
There you go. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I see why it would be appealing for non-English players, which is why there are so few English players on the team.
There's certainly,
I think there's like 10 total.
Should we talk about some of the signings then?
Sure.
So joining Ruben Neves in that central midfield is going to be João Moutinho, Portuguese international who went to the World Cup. I think that one didn't get as much attention because he's not really a flashy player, but I think that's really important.
That was the one that I had no idea what was happening anymore. Because it wasn't just that you got João Moutinho, it's that you got João Moutinho for £5 million. That's the one that I don't get at all. What are you doing, Monaco?
And yet, for some reason, they're taking lower transfer fees than maybe they should have asked for.
And yet still not, I guess so. And yet still not the biggest bargain that Wolverhampton got this transfer window.
What's the biggest bargain?
Rui Patricio. You got him for free. Patricio. You got Portugal's starting goalkeeper for free.
Not for free. We ended up paying something.
Mostly for free.
Yeah, but there's definitely a weird thing with Sporting where the players were attacked by the fans. They all kind of like opted out of their contracts, found a way out. And Wolves paid a very minimal fee to get Rui Patricio, Portugal's keeper, to be their starting keeper.
That's decent. I mean, and he's 30. Like he's got at least 6-7 years. Like that is a very strong signing and a very good goalkeeper, better than a lot of other Premier League goalkeepers from teams that are established in the league.
The signing that got me the most excited, really as a fan, was Adama Traore.
Yeah, I can't believe we haven't talked about him. How have we not led with him? Yeah.
Adama Traore. If you're not familiar,
do I know about this? Yes, you almost fainted when it was real.
So he was in the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. Yeah. He was an early edition Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. He came up at Barcelona. He had a brief spell at Aston Villa. He was with Middlesbrough last year. He's still only 22. Wolves paid £18 million for him. Adama Traore is maybe the fastest player in the Premier League right now, now that he's signed for Wolves.
Yep.
But he's also got very nice ball control, ball skills. And he does this thing where he goes kind of slow, he does a move, and then he disappears.
Yep.
And you keep seeing time and time again that he takes people by surprise with a burst of pace. It's almost like, I don't know a lot about cars, but there are certain cars that go like 0 to 100 really fast, and it seems impossible. That's what Adama Traore does.
Do you know who he took by surprise last season? Several Wolverhampton players.
Yes.
I saw that talked about a lot today, that they were all saying like he was one of, if not the best players they played against last season. Again, this seems like a bit of shrewd business to get the best player from one of your opponents last season playing for you this season.
Here's a stat for you. 262 successful take-ons.
That's a large number.
That's what Traore had in the Championship last year for Middlesbrough. That is a lot.
Yes, it is.
Here's the knock. The knock against Adama Traore is he doesn't quite deliver the final ball. After he has gotten away from everybody, his crosses are not the best, and his passing is not the best. But from the reading I've been doing, it's been improving, and he's only 22. 10 assists last year, which means there is at least some end product on the end of all that dribbling.
He's the kid in Mighty Ducks who doesn't know how to stop, so he just skates as fast as he can and then hopes.
It's a little bit like that. It's more like, I think he keeps crossing at pace and passing at pace, and then it's not as on target as it should be. But he gets away from people so many times that law of averages, one of them results in an assist and a goal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I also want to note Mighty Ducks 2. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. All right. I'm sure those movies are great.
And yet, with all of the many signings, one of the ones that I think is most interesting is a man named John Kitolano. That happened today. He's an 18-year-old Congolese-Norwegian left-back from Odds BK. That came through today. He will immediately go to their U23 side, and we were wondering why that would be the case. I did some reading. Do you know why
I don't
they
know
did
why.
this?
No, I've been so overwhelmed by the other signings, I didn't look into this.
Again, it's a sign that Wolves have a plan and are moving in the right direction. They basically did it as a statement of intent for the future. That they're saying the way they're going to be competitive is not to continue to sign players, it's to develop their academy and bring through exciting young prospects. And basically they signed this 18-year-old to play for their academy team as a way to say, yeah, we're establishing a very good academy. You should want to come play here. We're going to be actively trying to find youngsters next.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. They're making moves, man. They're making moves. Are there any transfers either in or out that didn't make you happy?
I'm still a little wary of Raul Jimenez.
Okay.
So Raul Jimenez, the Mexican target striker, went to the World Cup, came on a couple of times, lost the ball a couple of times when he came on. We've got him on loan from Benfica for the season with an option to buy for like 30 million at the end of the season. He didn't always start for Benfica. I'm a little concerned that a guy who wasn't first choice at Benfica is not necessarily going to dominate in the Premier League.
So I've heard that argument. I've also heard it argued that he was very good. I think Thiago Estevao wrote a good preview of Wolves for this season for StatsBomb.
Yep.
And one of the arguments he was making that Jimenez isn't good starting, but he's very good coming off the bench as an impact striker. And potentially that's what Wolves will use him as this season.
Okay.
As not necessarily a striker, but as the man to come in and clean up if they're struggling.
Well, I had predicted, here's my prediction, that Raul Jimenez will lose his starting spot. So it may be that he starts the season, ends up coming off the bench.
You're praying for him to start the first game so that if he doesn't start after that he lost his starting spot?
I would be doing that if I cared more about prediction points than actual points that Wolves get. I want whatever's best for Wolves.
Yeah, whatever. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. All right, so that's one incoming. Any outgoing that bum you out?
No, not that I can think of.
That's not what you're supposed to say.
Who left that I should be concerned
about? Because my prediction is that Daryl will, at some point, bemoan the sale of Barry Douglas.
Oh, okay, yeah, let's talk about this. I was upset about this at the time. Yep. Barry Douglas was the left wing back. Did really well for Wolves last year. Scottish guy. I think he scored like 5 goals, scored some nice free kicks.
14 assists.
14 assists. Putting some beautiful, beautiful crosses.
The most accurate crosses per game of any player on the team.
So how about that? They sold him to Leeds United about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was mad when I saw this. I really thought, why? There better be a reason why we're doing this. Turns out, they think he's not fast enough to cope with the pace of the Premier League. It's very cutthroat. It's very unfair on Barry Douglas, who I'm sure would have loved to play in the Premier League. But I kind of like the the pragmatism of just knowing that, yeah, we love you. You're a great player. You're not going to be able to keep up with people. So we're going to, rather than prove that over a few months and lose points because of it, we're going to cut you loose now, and we're going to sign Johnny Castro. Yeah. So Johnny Castro is this guy that's come in from, I believe, Atletico Madrid.
Yep. On loan.
Watched a lot of footage of him. Really, basically, he's quick enough to keep up with people, get back and tackle and be a wing back that can do a defensive job for Wolves and still contribute somewhat to the attack. So it just seems sensible to me.
Well, I think it's sensible if you look at how they're going to approach this, because my understanding is that it wasn't necessarily that Barry Douglas wasn't fast enough just to play at the Premier League level. The problem is that Wolves in their back, their 3-4-3 system, those wingbacks are getting forward a lot. And the idea is you clog the middle so that you can kind of let those midfielders get forward.
Yep.
The problem wasn't necessarily that he didn't have the pace to get forward. The problem was that he didn't have the pace to get forward and then sprint immediately back.
Fair enough.
And that is, I think, fundamental to what Wolves are going to try, is that those wingbacks are going to be moving. The only downside to that is that, from what I understand, Johnny Castro has never played as a wingback. He's a left back. Ooh. So that transition will maybe take a little bit of time.
There's also Ruben Vinagre, who he played a few times for Wolves last year, but I never paid enough attention. Apparently, he's very highly rated, but as a U19 Portuguese player. So we'll see if he makes a big impact.
He's another one that was signed permanently. £2 million.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, now I'm starting to wonder. How y'all are doing this.
Yeah, you were very skeptical of my weird transfer fee structure explanation.
Again, maybe this is naive. I have a hard time believing that an agent can tell a club, hey, take a lower transfer fee, and they'll accept that. But that feels like a thing that only clubs could ask other clubs to do. I'm not saying that's what it is. I'm just saying that's kind of how I've always understood it in my head.
So think of it this way. Think of it as Porto and Wolves and Valencia and maybe some other teams are in a nice big circle where they all scratch each other's backs. And that means giving each other lower transfer fees. You know what I'm saying? So they all help each other. So it's worth losing maybe an extra 10 million on a transfer just to all be part of this virtuous circle.
I would agree with that, except it's not going both ways. It's not like Wolves are sending very good players to Porto and Atletico and Monaco.
Maybe we'll send them Benicophobia.
See, there's the maybes again. That's again where I get hung up on it. Is I see what you're saying, but that's not a cycle. It's a lot of good players going one direction and not a lot coming back.
I think part of it is as well, the great thing for Wolves in this odd system that's been set up is that because they're now the Premier League team, not the Championship team, they're the English Premier League team.
Yeah.
They're somewhat at the top of the food chain of the weird George Mendes cabal. You know what I'm saying? They're the ultimate destination now. Whereas before, Valencia was a better destination, it's La Liga, or Porto was maybe a better destination. Now a Premier League team is definitely the best destination.
All right. Well, we'll see if they continue to be the best destination.
Can I give you my final prediction that I have?
Sure.
Ruben Neves will disappoint people.
Okay.
Because everybody's up on Ruben Neves, right? Because he scored those wonderful goals last year in the in the Championship, those long range volleys and all that. But if you really watched him for most of the season, he mostly hangs back and sits deep. He very rarely ventures forward. 1 assist the whole season and 6 kind of wonder goals. I'm predicting no wonder goals, maybe no assists. He'll just be very useful sitting deep, spraying passes around, and he won't do anything particularly exciting, but he'll be very important, and I will still love him.
There, it makes sense. It's interesting to have the tables turned to for you, because this is what I've always done with Man United, and you've teased me about, is it is awesome to me that you think this many people are like, what's Ruben Neves doing? Is he doing okay? Is he scoring goals? I'm very excited to watch him. I don't think that's what the casual soccer fan is excited about heading into this season.
I do think Ruben Neves will be the one name from Wolves that people will know coming up, because they will have seen some of those goals last year and heard about him not making the World Cup squad. I think he is the biggest name on the team, basically.
I think Gian Moutinho is the biggest name on the team.
He is now.
Yeah, I think Gian Moutinho and Rui Patricio are probably the biggest that
yeah, that's fair.
Casuals might know. And your phone agrees, so there you go.
Certainly does.
I just said casuals as though that's a bad thing. I don't know. You shouldn't be obsessed with the roster of Wolverhampton.
Did you have a Wolves prediction?
I did. It's that you're going to be sad about Barry Douglas at some point.
Oh, there we go. I think it already happened.
No, I think there'll be a time when when Johnny gets burnt for pace or is out of position, and you'll see Barry Douglas never would have done that.
You would have just tripped him over.
Yeah. Or when a set piece goes into row Z, to use your people's terminology, then you'll be mad.
Zed's dead, baby.
There you go.
All right, final thing. Sorry, I know we're going long on Wolves, but we went long on Man United, so here we are. There's a signing we didn't mention.
Those are the same two clubs.
Leo Dendocker, the Belgian centre-back.
We didn't talk about him?
Yep. I think he's really important. If you watched him in the World Cup and before for Anderlecht, he's a wonderful play the ball out of the back defender. It's exactly what Wolves are doing. I love that he fits into the Wolves system. Den Donker.
And Leo Bonatini signed permanently. Now we have talked about every single one.
There we go.
It felt like we just had to at this point.
Got it.
I like that we began by saying we're not going to list all of them. We listed every single one of them.
Here we are. Any closing thoughts on Wolves? I don't want to linger too long.
No. Other than I'm excited for the TSS Derby whenever it is.
Oh, we had it circled on a calendar, but we don't have it anymore. I'm very focused on Everton right now. Wolves play Everton 12:30 Saturday on Big NBC.
Yeah.
Friends NBC. Will and Grace NBC. Parks and Rec NBC.
But before that, we have Man United Leicester, I believe.
Yeah, Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock. It's Man United Leicester, the curtain raiser on the Premier League season. I'm going to meet you right here, Taylor. We're going to watch Man United Leicester, and we'll do a quick hot take on the first game of the Premier League season.
I'm optimistic.
Are you really?
No.
Let's see what happens. How are you feeling about the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network?
Feeling good. There are many reports to get to. We have many to get to today.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with
Jeremiah Dempster scouting Ben Lederman, the 18-year-old American midfielder for KAA Ghent 2. Travis and I talked about him on the Top Draw Soccer Show this week. Lederman announced on his Instagram that he was leaving Barcelona, where he has been playing for the U19s, to sign for Ghent in Belgium. Ghent finished last season in 4th place and are in the middle of Europa League qualifying, though it seems unlikely that Ben will feature for the team anytime soon.
Jake Lamar is scouting Austin Trusty, the 19-year-old centre-back for the Philadelphia Union, American centre-back. Jake says Austin had a great first half in the 3-1 loss against the LA Galaxy. Then he and the Union bounced back with a 3-1 win at Houston. Austin Trusty drew a VAR-confirmed red card from a late studs-up challenge by Thomas Martinez. That means he was on the receiving end of the challenge, right?
That is correct, yes. Okay. Yeah. Drew the red card, not got a red card, I think. Yeah. Ed, I think that will come up one more time in the scouting reports. Ed Ritter scouting Ben Mines, 18-year-old American attacker for the New York Red Bulls. Ben is finally back from injury and got a 15-minute run out in Red Bull 2's 2-2 draw at the Tampa Bay Rowdies. He then departed for Atlanta to take part in the MLS homegrown game, where he played a lively second half. He then continued to get minutes for Red Bull 2, and Ed thinks there's a chance he starts getting senior minutes if they don't bring in another striker in the window.
Window's closing soon for Major League Soccer, right?
Yes.
Alex Tremor is scouting Gianluca Busio, the 16-year-old American midfielder for Sporting KC. Alex says Gianluca Busio made his MLS debut in late July. He looked very confident on the ball, had some dangerous passes into the final third, didn't make much of an impact. He then got his first MLS start and his first MLS assist in Sporting's 1-0 win over the Houston Dynamo. After the match, Peter Vermees said Busio was his man of the match. Busio looked dangerous on the ball with some real attacking flair and also drew the first of 3 red cards.
I knew it was in there.
I've seen this assist. It's really good.
That a boy.
To ball into him, it's like a one-time flick around the corner to get the assist.
Not bad for a
Very nice work from Gianluca Busio.
Mm-hmm. All right, we've got another report to come, but first let me say it pertains. Shut up, Greg Vanny. Wes Kaufman scouting Ayo Akinyola, the 18-year-old American attacker for Toronto. Ayo Akinyola scored his first ever goal for the Toronto senior team. That's excellent. In the recent second-leg semifinal of the Canadian Championship versus the Ottawa Fury.
How senior was it then, really? In the Canadian Championship.
Hey, it counts. In the 36th minute, Akinyola pounced on a poor clearance and knocked the rebound home to give TFC an early 1-0 lead. Toronto went on to win the game 3-0 and the series 4-0 to advance to the finals, with Akinyola securing man of the match honors. In an interesting twist, during the post-match press conference, Toronto head coach Greg Vanny openly wondered why Canada is not aggressively trying to woo the young dual national. Akinyola has both Canadian and American passports. And that's why I say, Greg Vanny, no one needs to hear that. No one needs to hear that.
Speaking of Canadians, Jared Morgenstern is scouting Alphonso Davies, the 17-year-old Canadian attacker for the Whitecaps until January 2019. Mm-hmm. Jared says Alphonso Davies received a perfect 10 out of 10 rating from WhoScored.com for his performance in Vancouver's 4-2 win over Minnesota. It was his first multi-goal game and also featured 2 assists and 8 successful dribbles. He used his speed to set himself up for his first goal, then took on 4 tired defenders for his second. Mm-hmm. So the move to Bayern has happened.
I think it's like they've agreed to it, but because he's only 17, I guess instead of doing the thing where he goes there and trains unofficially until he turns 18, he'll see out the season, and then in January he'll move to Bayern.
All right, so just keep tearing up MLS, and then we'll get you after that.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I'm not sure that Bayern will love that, but yeah, that's the plan. Zach Betcher scouting Timothy Weah, 18-year-old American forward for PSG. where we also talked about him on the Top Drawer Soccer Show, where recorded an assist in PSG's...
What show is that now?
The Top Drawer Soccer Show. It's the one that you and I do with Travis Clark.
Oh, yeah.
Except I think... as of late, I do it with Travis Clark, since I've done it once in the last 2 months, and you've done it 0 in the last 2 months.
I did it with you in
I'm saying
in
with Travis.
Oh, I see. I'll be talking to Travis next
Outliers.
week. And people should subscribe to the Top Drawer Soccer Show via iTunes or wherever else you find your podcast.
There we are. Timothy Weah recorded an assist in PSG's 3-2 win over Atletico Madrid. Not Atletico Madrid. Nice try, autocorrect. And then scored the third goal for a weakened PSG in their 4-0 win over Monaco in the French Super Cup. That does not bode well for the competitiveness of Ligue 1 this season.
It does not. Am I right in thinking that Tim Weah is going to be part of that PSG first team and is going to see proper minutes this season?
From what I understand, he is the backup option to Edson Cavani.
It's very exciting.
It sure is.
Colin Bish is scouting Eric Williamson, the 21-year-old American wide midfielder, for T2 Judgment Day. Williamson was nominated for Goal of the Week after a great performance against LA Galaxy 2 last DOS. He started the play, did Williamson, then made a curling run behind the defence before finishing with a smooth one-touch shot that curled into the bottom corner. Go on, Eric Williamson.
Go on, indeed. Ian Schenk scouting Fernando Arce Jr., the 21-year-old American midfielder for Dorados de Sinaloa. Tijuana loaned Fernando Arce Jr. and a couple other prospects back to Asensio and the X side Dorados for the Apertura. This is the midfielder's second stint with Sinaloa, but his situation remains unclear. He's listed as a midfielder again after playing as a defender for Tijuana's reserve and youth teams all spring.
Turns the page over. Mm-hmm. Colin Marshall is scouting Conrad de la Fuente, the 17-year-old American attacker for Barcelona Juvenil A. Colin says, it appears that Conrad de la Fuente was officially promoted to Juvenil A on July 1st, 2018. Ben Lederman was not so fortunate.
Hence why he now plays for Ghent 2.
Colin says he's still unsure if that promotion actually happened, but he does know that De La Fuente was on the bench for La Masia's team of the season, one of only 2 Juvenil B players to earn that honour. Conrad De La Fuente.
I believe it was listed in Transfer Market as him playing for Juvenil A, but maybe it hasn't necessarily been released in a Barcelona press statement yet. Jeff and Sam Huffman scouting Mukwele Akele, the 21-year-old American attacker for Villarreal B. That's a step in the right direction. Mukwele has moved up to the Villarreal B team in the Spanish 3rd Division this year. In even better news, he scored the only goal in a 1-0 preseason friendly against fellow 3rd Division side FC Jumilla.
Right, keep working backwards through the alphabet, Mukwele. Jeff Markman is scouting Jeff Ryan Adelaide, the 20-year-old French midfielder for Angers. Arsenal have confirmed the permanent transfer of Ryan Adelaide to Angers, where he spent a productive loan campaign last spring. It's a sad day for all Jeff-supporting Arsenal fans, but we wish him well in League 1. I think I once had the correct pronunciation of that team, and I've since forgotten it.
It sounds good enough to me.
Right.
I like it. I knew what you were saying. It's better than Angerts. You do that. Guy Edwab scouting Serge Gnabry, the 22-year-old German wide forward for Bayern Munich. Gnabry came off the bench and provided an assist in Bayern Munich's come-from-behind win over PSG in the ICC and started for one half.
Favorite tournament?
Of course. Started for one half in their abject defeat against Juventus. It looks like Bayern will play a 4-3-3 under new boss Niko Kovac, with Gnabry on the right side of the front three, at least in one of those ICC games. It's still too early to tell if he will actually start there once everyone returns from vacation and the season gets going.
Narrator says he won't. John Youngblood is scouting Rio
He's got
Griffiths.
some competition, yeah.
Ron Howard does not have faith in him. Rio Griffiths, the 17-year-old English striker. Rio has officially cancelled his Tottenham contract, says John, and is set to move on from the club. Rio was the top scorer for the U18 team, but wasn't included in the roster for Tottenham's US tour. Lyon and Real Madrid have been linked, and his future seems to be away from England. John requests a new player to scout, hopefully an American, since Spurs keep selling their youngsters.
Konstantinos Kaliagas, scouting Georgios Anzoulas, 18-year-old Greek center back for Fiorentina. Anzoulas now has a Wikipedia page, says Konstantinos. In slightly more important news, the youngster, who apparently has been nicknamed the Dang Tank, has been loaned from Asteras Tripolis to Fiorentina. All the information Konstantinos could find indicates that the loan comes with an option to buy, and that Georgios will likely play in the Primavera with Fiorentina's U19s.
Zach Rose is scouting the magnificently named Ronaldo Vieira, the 20-year-old English midfielder, now with Sampdoria. Zach says Ronaldo Vieira has joined the likes of Lewis Cook, James Milner, Fabian Delph, and countless other Leeds youngsters when he moved away from the club. He was transferred to Sampdoria for a fee believed to be around €7 million. I love when young Englishmen go abroad.
That's a good bit of business. 7 million euros for him.
Go get it, Ronaldo.
All right, Ronaldo.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ronaldo the third.
Ronaldo the third. Thank you to everybody who sent in scouting reports. Thank you to everybody who is a part of the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. If you'd like to join, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. If you've already joined and you're waiting for your player, email me. I think I put this call out a couple of shows ago. Lots of people have emailed to request their player. I promise I will be assigning players over the weekend. If you want to get in on that, it's daryl@totalsoccershow.com. Taylor Rockwell.
That was a big breath.
It's a big, deep breath. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to preview the Premier League with me today and sitting through all my Wolves chat.
Right back at you, buddy. I guess it applies, yeah. I talked Wolves too.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow for Man United versus Leicester.